This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, hello, ho there. It's Joe Cutter Diving. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday for today, January the 15th, is a boxing icon who competed in boxing from 1988 to 2016. He was the middleweight champion from 2001 to 2005 and the light heavyweight champion from 2011 to 2012. He made 20 defenses of his middleweight crown, his IBF crown, and unified the middleweight belts in 2001. It was undisputed and all that. Pound for pound, he's one of the best around and one of the best middleweight members ever. He would actually shockingly win the light heavyweight belt at his age, which was amazing. He was known as the Executioner. His name is Bernard Hopkins. He's now 58 years old. So Bernard Hopkins was living in a housing project in Philadelphia. He turned to crime early in his life. At age 17, he had 9 felonies and was sentenced to 18 years in prison. However, after 5 years, he was released. He decided to use boxing as an escape from his previous life and actually converted to Islam. Anyway, Hopkins did pretty well. He became a professional October 11, 1988, facing Clinton Mitchell, and lost. After being out for 16 months, he actually became a middleweight and beat Greg Page. Hopkins would put up a 21 win match winning streak between February 1990 and December 92. He would actually face Roy Jones Jr. for the IBF middleweight belt. Unfortunately, he would be outpointed by unanimous decision. Anyway, he ended up losing a match against Segundo Mercado in Ecuador, but he wasn't used to the altitude. However, the IBF middleweight belt came, and in April 1995, he TKO'd Mercado in Landover, Maryland to claim the belt. And he actually defended the IBF belt 12 times without a loss, taking down Glenn Johnson, Simon Brown, and Antoine Eccles. So anyway, they decided to have a middleweight tournament. The boxers would be the IBF champion Bernard Hopkins, the WBC champion Keith Holmes, the WBA champion William Joppy, and Felix Trinidad, putting into middleweight. So Hopkins would face Keith Holmes and won unanimously in NYC. Trinidad took down William Joppy in 5 rounds. So it was a Hopkins Trinidad for the unification belt. It was supposed to be September 15th, 2001, but you can probably guess why it wasn't that date. Anyway, 2 weeks later, September 29th, it happened. Hopkins was an underdog. Hopkins put the goldenhouse.com website thing on the back of him for the fight, 100K. So anyway, unfortunately, Hopkins caused huge controversy by throwing the Puerto Rico flag on the floor in press conferences, which would be really bad. It looked like Hopkins was going to take down Trinidad. It was going to be a decision victory. But in the 12th round, he floored Trinidad. And Trinidad's father stopped the fight. Trinidad couldn't believe his luck. It was his first loss in his career, and Hopkins became the first undisputed middleweight champion since Marvin Hagler in 1987. So Hopkins was named Fighter of the Year, and then defended that undisputed title 6 times. He would actually fight Oscar De La Hoya, who won title bouts in 6 boxing divisions. So it was huge. In Las Vegas, September 18, 2004. They fought at 158 pounds. So the catch weight. So that, I believe that meant that the belt couldn't be up for Well, anyway, Hopkins KO'd De La Hoya in the 9th round and couldn't believe it. Bernard Hopkins won the belt. And at the time of the stoppage, Hopkins was up 2-1 on judges' scorecards. De La Hoya made $30 million, but he didn't win the fight, whereas Hopkins got $10 million and won the fight. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But De La Hoya actually invited Hopkins to join his East Coast promotion of the Golden Boy thing. And at 40 years old, Hopkins took down the European middleweight champion Howard Eastman. So amazing. He was 40 years old when he won that, when he kept that title going. And I'm 3 years younger than him. Unfortunately, though, Taylor would take down Hopkins by a couple of key fights. Well, Hopkins and Taylor had a disputed match July 2005. It was split decision. But a lot of people thought Hopkins won. So they had a rematch and Taylor won by unanimous decision. Hopkins decided to go to light heavyweight to face Antonio Tarver. But Hopkins would win by unanimous decision. Anyway, Hopkins would beat Winky Wright, and then would face Joe Kelsecki. And Kelsecki did win by split decision. Hopkins would face Kelly Pavlik. No, it was just shocking, all that. Bernard Hopkins would face Roy Jones Jr. 17 years after their first fight. Oh, that was in 2010. And Hopkins won by unanimous decision. So Hopkins did his job. Then he would challenge WBA heavyweight champion David Haye. But no, he challenged him, but he didn't get the fight. So he would fight Canadian Jean Pascal, who was the lineal light heavyweight champion in Quebec City. I was hoping, and of course, you know, being Canadian, I kind of hoped for that. Unfortunately for it was a majority draw. Hopkins did have one judge's fight, but the other two voted for a tie. So it was a rematch at the Bell Center in Montreal. Hopkins would win by unanimous decision. And Hopkins shocked everyone. At 46 years, 4 months, 6 days, he ended up winning a belt, becoming the oldest boxer to win a title belt, surpassing George Foreman's 45 years, 10 months old when he beat Michael Moore in 1994. It was amazing. At age 46. Unfortunately, Hopkins lost by TKO to Chad Dawson because he had injured his shoulder. But Dawson threw him off his back. Fortunately, that was a foul, so Hopkins ended up getting the belt. All that. There was a rematch, but by majority decision, Hopkins lost. And, you know, that just sucked. Well, but he did beat IBF light heavyweight champion Travis Tavares Cloud in Brooklyn. So Hopkins did it by unanimous decision. So Hopkins unified the WBA and IBA light heavyweight titles by taking down Big Red Shermanoff in 2014. And Hopkins lost to Sergey Kovalev November 2014 in Atlantic City. So anyway, Hopkins couldn't believe it, but yeah, his last fight in 2016 at the Forum in Inglewood was huge. All that, but anyway, he was still a good fighter. It was 55-8-2. Yeah, he ended up losing his match to Joe Smith Jr., but still, that's amazing what he could do. 55-8-2, and he was a champion, boxing champion at age 45. It was just amazing what he could do. 45 years old, and he won a boxing championship. And boxing's a tough sport, dude. Yeah. So yeah, Bernard Hopkins was the executioner. He executed everything to perfection. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.